Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer, and tonight we're going to talk about the gluttonous one, he who is known as King of the Dung, the Lord of the Flies. That's right, Beelzebuth, Beelzebul, and Beelzebuth. Beelzebul himself. Yes. All right. So why don't we get started here? Last time I talked to you a little bit about Lucifer and kind of whet your appetite a little bit about him and where his background lied within being the prideful one. A lot of illumination there. So tonight I'd like to take you into some of these ancient scrolls, these ancient grimoires, and kind of guide you through a metaphysical transmutation to enlighten you into the lies and deceits about this individual that is talked and discussed today. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's take it back to the beginning. Let's become indulgent upon the gnosis, the path of enlightenment. That is why, of course, why we're on the left-hand path. It's dark magicians, sorcerers. We're seeking self-evolution through truth, information, alchemical change. So here it is. Beelzebub. Within the political texts, Satan replaced Beelzebuth. Okay? Within the Bible, the New Testament, we're talking Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew's chapter 12, verses 24 through 29. Mark chapter 3, verses 22 through 27. Luke chapter 11, verses 14 through 22. This basically is the casting out of demons in Beelzebub's name, okay? We've all heard this story of Jesus Christi, the one, the false Messiah, he who supposedly came from Mary, the Virgin. You know, Here we see where after his execution on the cross, he went down into the underworld. The underworld, okay, the land of shadows, the land of chaos. And here we see where Satan himself seeks to ensnare him. But Beelzebub says, no, 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 he's way too powerful. Don't fuck with him. Don't mess with him. Okay? He will rain chaos down on this and throughout hell. Okay? So here we see where he's casting out demons, and the Pharisees and the people are sitting there looking at him and going, hey, he's casting demons out. He must be the Lord of the Fly himself, Beelzebub, because he's casting these demons out of these people like he does, as Lord of the demons. Well, where did this text come from? You might ask. You might ask here. Okay. Well, let's get into it. The Testament of Solomon, he is referred to as the Prince of Demons. Okay. The Appa, um, the Epiphal text, aka the Gospel of Nicodemus, okay, shows Beelzebub started ruling over Satan. Okay. Do you remember what I said? Right here, the political text. Beelzebub was replaced by Satan. Satan was put in power over Beelzebub, right? This shows the complete opposite. Beelzebub started ruling over Satan, which means we've gone back in time. Okay? So, in medieval times, Beelzebuth was regarded as a demon of great power. And he reigns over the witches' Sabbaths, not just the witches themselves. And here we see a whole different thing, because the one thing that you hear in Sunday school, those of you who have actually been to Sunday school and are listening to this, you know what I'm talking about, what I'm about to get into. Okay? Here, we've heard of Satan or Lucifer having relations with witches. Okay? The great orgies at the witches' Sabbaths. Well, guess what? Right here is where this storyline comes from. Okay? Beelzebub supposedly drugged these witches and warlocks to have orgies with them against their will. They were supposedly frozen stiff so that he could just have his way with them. Kind of reminds you like of the JCI God and how he impregnated a virgin named Mary, Mother of God, so to speak. Ironic, isn't it? So we see the story where he's ruling over the witches and their Sabbaths. Unlike the grimoire of Armadale, which even in the Magus by Francis Barrett shows a whole nother lord of the Sabbaths, the whole nother lord of witches, Satan, the witch father. And I'll get into that in the next video so you can actually see where all of this transpired from. All right? But let's get into the Black Masses. Okay? 17th century. The name of Beelzebuth was invoked. Okay? Invoked. Okay? Which was very interesting because of the fact that the magical text states that the sorcerer who summons him does so at their own risk. Now, why would the Black Masses, would you have to worry about your health, your safety? Okay? Well, in a lot of these grimoires, he has been blamed for possessions. Okay? Specifically, a few instances from the 17th century all the way to the early 19th century. We see him mixed into a few possession cases from the nuns of Loudun, France, to that of the Erling possessions of the 20th century. Or better yet, let's go back to the 16th and 17th century, where we see a specific one, Nicole Arby. Was it Aubrey? Obry is how it was spelled. Was supposedly possessed by Beelzebub. Now, he went from possessing this one nun to possessing the nuns of Loudun, France. Only to early 20th century, the Erling possessions, only to leave on the 27th of December, 1928. 1928, the last known time of any given possession utilizing the name of Beelzebub. Interesting, right? But yet, Beelzebub is associated with gluttony, which is the fifth, the number 5 sin, according to the Catholic Church. Okay? The Vatican. Within the 7 deadlies. Well, let's go into the rabbinical texts. His name is Lord of the Dunghill. And this is basically after the, how should I say this, the monotheistic uprise into Judaism. That's right, I said it, Judaism, right? But here we're in Hebrewism. Hebrewism, he's known as King of the Dunghill, because this is where they started mocking him, mocking Beelzebub. I mean, I don't know about you, but wouldn't you, wouldn't you be pissed off too if somebody started mocking you and picking on you and calling you names and putting you down? I mean, I don't know about you, but of course I'd be pissed. I mean, I'm a pretty patient kind of guy, but I haven't been around since the dawn of time like Beelzebub has. Okay, the Grimoire of Armadale. You remember I mentioned that grimoire earlier, just a few minutes ago. List him as being associated with both Lucifer from my last video and that of Astaroth. Okay, Astaroth. Now, I was having a conversation with my apprentice earlier tonight, and I was talking to him about the difference between the Trinity and the unholy Trinity. Okay, and it was funny because Lucifer is considered to be the emperor, the emperor. Okay, Beelzebuth, Beelzebul, okay, Beelzebub is known to be the second in command of the underworld. He is a high-ranking individual, which is why he's associated with Lord of Demons, King of the Demons, Lord of the Dunghill, even. But here he's mentioned specifically as being associated with both Lucifer and Astaroth. Okay? The sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage. He has the power to transform man into animal and animal into man. Okay, and this is something that's very interesting because of the fact if we look at modern day pop culture, okay, today we call it transmortification, if you wish, of a being, is where you have a man who turns into a lycanthrope or a being turned into a vampire. Okay, think about that for just a minute here. Okay, that transmortification of the soul where the more basic instincts kick in. Lycanthropy, vampirism, even the zombie myth, the wraith, the banshee, oof, the hellhound. Ironic, isn't it? You're seeing a pattern here. Okay. Now, what's interesting is that he is recognized as one of the sub princes, the 8 sub princes as well here. And he's also associated in the same thing with the demonic Bible put out by Turk-Suzij. He's associated as being one of the 8 sub princes of hell. Now, what's interesting though is that when you get into 1863, the dictionary Infernal, for an example, sees him as the Lord of the Crossroads, or the cross. How should I say this? The Lord of the Crossbones. Okay, motive, as in motif. Okay, and that's something that's very interesting too, because when you get into the Grand Grimoire, also known as the true Grimoire, okay, the red the Red Dragon Grimoire, the whole kit and caboodle. He's listed as a prince of hell. So which is he? A lord? Well, lord is just another name for royalty, somebody in power, like a king or a prince. Now, he's been called the king of demons. He has been referred to as Lord of demons, Lord of devils, Lord of the dung, the dunghill. Ironic, right? So, by the time we get into 1821 and we get into Burbinger's work, claimed Beelzebuth supplements Satan as ruler of hell, his colorful title being Supreme Chief. Supreme Chief, okay, in the Infernal Empire, founder of the Order of the Fly. So if that's the case, then how do you explain the fact that in the True Keys of Solomon, Beelzebuth is said to rule all spirits of the Americas with the Grand Duke Astaroth? Huh. I find that interesting. Hell, even the Kabbalah, states that he is the chief of the 9 evil hierarchies of hell, of the underworld. The chief of the 9 evil hierarchies. Huh. Interesting, right? Paradise Lost in I 157, Satan addresses Beelzebuth as the fallen cherub, which basically links him to angelology. Right there, that text alone, that verse alone, not only shows that Satan was a watcher angel, known as the chief within the Gorgora, but is also linking Beelzebuth to the same order, the same foundation, linking him as a cherub, a fallen cherub, meaning a fallen angel. Okay? All or Nothing by Gurdjieff, that's with 2 I's, by the way, refers to Beelzebuth as a hero. Okay? You'd have to actually go in and read this entire script because of the fact that this entire text, because in this case, he's telling his grandson that Beelzebuth came to him and relieved him of some kind of burden, some form of burden that we now know as being associated with gluttony of some sort. It doesn't say what that gluttonous act was or what the gluttony was itself, but it clearly states that if it wasn't for Beelzebuth, that all hope would be lost. I mean, think about it. In Dante's Inferno, it shows the mouth of the dragon with the words, "All who enter here abandon all hope. Abandon all hope, all ye who enter here." Okay? The poetical works, aka refers to Beelzebuth conferring with Satan. Now, what did I say at the beginning of this? Okay? Corresponding with Satan. Okay? Now, what's interesting here is that when we get into the biblical accounts, we see only a small fraction of what the world teaches and what they, especially in religious formulations, of where these sources actually came from. Now, what's ironic here is if we go into 2 Kings, chapter 1, verse 2, his name was called upon by King Ahaziah. Okay, and I probably just butchered that name too because it's one of those Arabic names of Israel around 853 to 855 BC. And this is really where things started going from Hebrew to Judaism through the monotheistic takeover because of the fact that he became known as the prince of devils from the Pharisees when Judaism took over and it became monotheistic like in Luke chapter 11, verse 19. Okay? So think about that right there when we get into this hierarchy, when we get into this knowledge. Think about it for just a moment. To say that it went from Hebrewism, it went from pagan cultures. In some aspects, he is known as the evening star or the evening Venus. Okay? So would it be fair to say, or a major leap if we go into ancient Greek philosophy, that he would be known as Hesperos, the dark star associated with Lucifer? I mean, just think about that for just a minute. I mean, it's something that's kind of curious, but at the same time needs more information to confirm or to deny it. But here we're also seeing through these literatures, these grimoires, these scrolls, these amazing works, that he's associated with the dark evening star of Venus. Now, what do you call Venus in the evening? Wouldn't it be called a dark star? Think about that for just a moment. A dark star, Hesperos, maybe even Chernobog. But I wouldn't go that far because Chernobog is a much older being and really quite powerful and, let's just say, a little intimidating. But Beelzebuth, no matter what the spelling of the name, has references from the Middle East, from Mesopotamia to Syria, Akkadian, Sumeria, right into ancient Greek. Some people, due to the association of the winged animal, where he appears as a giant fly with the crossbones motif, I might add, could be classified as a New Age version of Pazuzu, the Mesopotamian lord of death, king of the grasshopper, lord of the harvest, enemy of Lamashtu. Hmm. Interesting thought there, isn't it? How all of these beings seem to have some form of connection, but yet not enough information to compare them and put them together. That's why we walk this path through knowledge, wisdom, and enlightenment, even calling upon them to work with them, either as their apprentice or as a pact with these beings. You get to learn from them. They get to, you open up your life so they can mold you, to help you align with them in that current. But the knowledge is undeniable, showing from a demonic being to a biblical account how it's always, this being seems to be around Hebrewism and Judaism. But I wonder, because he's already in two of these Middle Eastern traditions, not just the Kabbalah and the old spelling, but I wonder, is he also in the Quran? Maybe one of the Shaitans? Hmm. Because of Bliss, his story is the same as Lucifer. Hmm. I don't know. But it's food for thought though. And it's something that you can look up for yourself. But for right here, for right now, that's a gluttonous one. Beelzebuth, Lord of Gluttony. I want to thank Arctic Zun for appearing and joining me here. For those of you who are going to come on after the fact, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch these videos. And most importantly, I hope this has been intellectual. I hope it's been enlightening. And I do hope that you take those materials that have been mentioned and go out and get them for yourself and read them. I've given you the exact books, the exact scrolls, the exact mentions of this being's name so that you can work with him, so that you can go out and read up, study them in an overall textual format. Who knows? You might just end up working for him. If that is your will, then there is a way. But for now, have a good night. And my next video will be on Satan. Have a good one.